On the 15th of December 2021, Mr. Mitsukarito Righteous aka Blinks was about to learn the greatest lesson of his life, watching his long-time loyal and trusted friend unmasking his true nature by leading him to a slaughterhouse. This is a story of two good friends, Mr. Mitsukarito Righteous, also known as Blinks, a young man in his early 30s who resides in Rivers State with his immediate family, and Mr. Ikena Ofor, who's known for running a delivery company which delivers and picks up goods. Ikena Ofor is from Rivers State, Ichie precisely, and he's about 27 to 28 years old according to different sources. Blinks and Ikena's relationship goes far way back, even before university days, because it was said that they both attended the same university, which is the University of Port Harcourt, and they've known for like a decade. Wow, more than 10 years. That's like enough to raise a baby from cradle to primary school. So imagine how much trust must have been built over that 10 solid years. So on the 15th of December, 10 years long trust was about to be betrayed for riches. More so, this date was Ikena's birthday, so he decided to mark it by bringing a couple of close pals to celebrate with him. On that evening, Ikena invited Blinks to 411 Lounge somewhere in GRA, Port Harcourt, where the get-together was to take place. However, he didn't use his phone to place this call. It was almost as if he was hiding something. He rather used a strange number to call Blinks, which all made sense at the end of the story. Few moments later, Blinks was at the venue, only to meet Ikena's absence. Blinks then called Ikena and was like, "My guy, how far now? I'm already here and I can't find you." But Ikena calmed him down, asking him to take whatever he wanted that he was going to pay on his arrival. Following this call, Blinks made himself comfortable and waited for Ikena for about 45 minutes. Ikena later arrived and called Blinks to announce his arrival. And then Blinks went out to receive the birthday boy in excitement. You know that excitement that comes with finally getting to see your G after a long, boring wait. But then, Ikena wasn't alone. He was in the company of his girlfriend, another of his friend, and the driver. The five of them all exchanged pleasantries and went inside the bar, and the party got started. But Blinks only ordered for water and juice, and this was because he wasn't in the right state of health. While Ikena ordered for small stout and his girlfriend ordered for smoothies. Ikena's friend ordered for Budweiser, while the driver ordered for Heineken. Lastly, they then ordered for barbecue chicken and fish. Now you'll be wondering why I'm being so particular about their orders. Well, at the end of the story, it will all make sense. While they were still there, Ikena invited his cousin and gave him their location. Few moments later, Ikena's cousin also arrived with his girlfriend. The party got started, they danced, ate, celebrated and all that, and at about past 10, they settled the bills and they were ready to leave. Ikena's cousin then asked Blinks to go with him and his girl so they could drop him off, but I guess this was because he didn't know about the plans, probably. But Ikena declined, asking Blinks to wait back, that they were going to go see a friend of theirs called Eniki, probably because the night was still young, you know. Following this new development, Ikena then asked Blinks to call Eniki to ask him where he was. Eniki then told them that he was at a certain bar called 1708 in Rumoke, Umboba, Port Harcourt. So Blinks, Ikena, Ikena's girlfriend, Ikena's friend, as well as the driver, all headed for Eniki's location. But I'm thinking that all these were just delay tactics to actualize whatever he had planned that night for Blinks, because Eniki and Ikena didn't have any outstanding business to thrash out or anything to even talk about, because if they had such a plan that night, I mean, Eniki would have come to Ikena's birthday, but that didn't happen. So they all had to go to Eniki's location, which is somehow sketchy to me. On their way to Eniki's location, they made a stop at a bar called 19 in GRA. But only Ikena's girlfriend went inside the bar while the rest of the guys waited for her in the car. It took a few moments and then she later came out with 2 packs of food and they drove off. After a long drive, they finally got to Eniki's location, which is Umboba 1708 Lounge. Immediately they got there, Ikena's friend requested to take his leave. Then the driver went to drop him off. At this point, they have already met Eniki before the driver got back. Immediately he got back, Ikena's girlfriend put up an attitude like as though Ikena had made her angry, or maybe he had asked her to go home against her will, or probably they both planned it. No one knows, we can only speculate. So it was already around 11 when the driver went to drop her off at an area of the city known as Alakaya, according to him when he got back. Eniki, Blinks, Ikena's driver, and Ikena was still at the place for a while. At about 12 a.m, Blinks was also ready to go. So the driver had to drop him off too. But this time Ikena joined in, so Blinks was at the front of the car, Ikena was at the back, then they left Eniki at 1708 to do his thing. So when they got into the car, the driver asked Blinks where he was going to, if he was going to his family house or somewhere else. But Blinks told him he wasn't going to go to his family house because that would mean going to disturb their sleep. So Blinks requested to be taken to his friend's place, another of his friend's place, somewhere around the city called Rumodara. So the driver agreed and said, okay, I'll go get fuel first at the filling station called Resto Park because they operate 24/7 and it's like 15 to 20 minutes drive from Blinks' supposed destination. But I think the fuel station plan was just to drive around the city to allow whatever they did to Blinks kick in. Because come to think of it, why didn't he get fuel when he went to drop Ikena's friend? He didn't get fuel when he went to drop Ikena's girlfriend. It was Blinks' turn. You remember that he was going to get fuel. I mean, that's sketchy. Following this arrangement, Blinks wasted no time and called his friend, the one at Rumodara, the place they were going to announce his coming so he could stay awake to receive him. According to sources, it was said that immediately they drove out from Rumoke towards Okilton Road in Ada George, Blinks lost consciousness. Although it's not really clear what happened to Blinks, whether his drink was spiked or it was some kind of black magic working on him, but it was only reported that it was some kind of trance he felt like he was in. But I mean, he opened his drink by himself, so how then did that happen? Or was it the hotel management, or was it the people at the bar? Because at 17:08, it wasn't reported that he took anything. It was just at the first place they went to where they celebrated the birthday. Or probably he left his drink or his water open at the first place they went to, the 411 lounge where the birthday was celebrated. Probably he left his drink open to place a call or either ease himself or something. But I mean, it was a gathering of people, not just Ikena or his girlfriend or just the driver. They were like more than 5, so there was no way that could have happened, like if they didn't really know about the plans, if it was just plotted by Ikena alone and the driver. So I'm guessing it was something spiritual, maybe black magic, voodoo or something of that nature. You can never know for sure. So whenever you're out there, remember to keep your eyes open because it's really cold outside. But somewhere in Blink's subconsciousness, he could still eavesdrop on Ikena's conversation with someone over the phone, that he was the one that came to drop that girl off earlier and that he was coming back with someone else, that when he gets to the gate he will horn so he could come open it up for him. So I'm guessing that he had so much on his plate that he couldn't even meet up on time for his own birthday party, and that was why he kept Blinks waiting for that long. That conversation Ikena had on the phone struck him so hard that somewhere in his mind he knew he had to stay at alert to know what was going on around him. Finally, they approached a red gate, just like Ikena discussed on the phone with someone earlier. When they drove in, Blinks noticed it was a hotel. He then saw more than 10 girls and some guys that were all tied up. Although the total number of people that were tied up that night were not given accurately, but according to sources it was said that there were more than 15. But there was a particular guy that was tied up that night. He was blindfolded, his hands and legs were all tied up, and that was what caught Blink's attention. The guy was said to be wearing a black trouser and a white shirt. So Blinks was still inside the car, so he turned around and asked Ikena what was going on there. But Ikena gave him a cold reply and said they were there for sacrifice. But Blinks was like, how? Why would you bring me to a place like this? And Ikena said, bro, look, it is what it is. What has to be done has to be done. At this point, Blinks knew he was in grave danger, especially when he looked through the windscreen of the car and saw about 4 guys holding pistols, and one was coming towards him to bring him out of the car. Immediately Blinks noticed this movement. He gently came down from the car like he didn't know what he was doing. Immediately he ran towards the safe part of the hotel with the boys trying to go after him. He scaled the hotel fence, not minding the barbed wires, sustaining countless injuries while trying to escape. Since the fence was protected with barbed wires, the guys couldn't go across the fence to chase after Blinks, so they had to pass the gates, giving Blinks enough time to escape. The compound Blinks got into was empty, which gave him enough time to strategically plan his next move. He went through 3 more compounds after that, not minding the risk of being spotted and tag the thief. Well, obviously because he was running from a more dangerous situation, I guess. At some point, he spotted the ritualists from a distance with torchlights trying to split themselves to look for him. So he had to scale another fence to avoid being seen. That was when he saw vigilantes positioned somewhere but was skeptical in approaching them for the fear that they were working with the ritualists. He hid himself till about 3 a.m. Then at some point, he noticed he was struggling with trying to snap out of the hypnosis. He had to use his urine to wash his eyes so he could regain full consciousness and to know his exact position. Since it is believed in some traditions that the first morning urine washes away spiritual veils from the eyes, which actually worked. When he saw that the coast was clear, he followed his instincts by summoning courage to approach the vigilante group. He got there and narrated his story with his body covered in blood gotten from the injury he sustained trying to flee the crime scene. At first they doubted him, thinking he was a thief, but Blinks went further in trying to convince them by mentioning a few people he knew in the area and also pointing out their houses, since he was now conversant with the area after washing his face with his urine. So they took him in and allowed him stay there till it was done and it was safe for him to go. And no, because I know what you're thinking, there's no way those vigilante guys would have stormed the hotel that morning, because you can't obviously take a knife to a gunfight. And yes, they could have called the police immediately, right? Perhaps the rest of the victims could have been rescued, or maybe they didn't want to pry or get themselves involved in what they didn't know anything about. Probably they didn't want to meddle in the business of the owner of the hotel. You know how it is with influential people. So you see, it all boils down to corruption, and it's really shameful that the so-called security agents that are paid to secure lives and properties only target a certain group of people. Well, the next morning, Blinks made a smart move by contacting Ikenna anonymously to make him an offer he couldn't refuse. Since Ikenna ran a dispatch company, Ikenna was offered a contract to pick up packages, so in respect to this, Ikenna gave up his office address for the business meeting. By this time, Blinks had already reported the case to IG Tactical Team, so they stormed Ikenna's office and he was arrested, but Ikenna denied all allegations leveled against him. Well, in his statement, he said him and Blinks were on drugs, ice specifically. So therefore, Blinks' story was as a result of hallucinations from drug abuse, and that was how he was released without even letting Blinks know. But wait, let's go back to what they ordered. If Blinks was so ill that he only had juice and water at the bar the previous night, how could he have possibly done drugs knowing fully well he was on medication and taking anything toxic was going to deteriorate his health condition? But they couldn't have possibly smoked ice in the car or at a random place at that ungodly hour for the fear of being accosted by security agents, because they were actually on transit. I mean, chances are really slim that these guys did drugs. But why didn't Ikenna use his phone to call Blinks throughout that night till they finally met at 411 Lounge? Probably because he didn't want anything suspicious to be traced back to him. So he stayed in the shadows to do a clean job. But unfortunately for him, things didn't go as planned. Or wait, didn't the police ask how he sustained those injuries? Or is it that some cards were played on the ground that no one knows about? Well, at some point, the police and the owner of the hotel turned against Blinks, capitalizing on drug abuse, saying the whole ritual story was all false accusation. That was how the case file was closed till date. But we are thankful Blinks is safe and sound and has gone back to his normal life, despite the trauma this may have caused him. So be careful out there and be mindful of the people you call friends, because there are a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing roaming and looking for who to devour. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comment section. Also state where you're watching from. Subscribe to this channel so you know when I post a new story. Ciao.